Linda, is a union official going to start marching into a small business and go, hello, mate, I want to have a look at your numbers?
Well, let's talk about wage theft, right? Because if you walk into a supermarket and nab something off the shelf, you obviously could be subject to criminal penalties, but it's not the same.
I agree with the problem.
If you are than in Victoria and Queensland, where they have state-based wage theft laws, it's not the same if you're a boss.
Mm-hmm.
And we know that wage theft is estimated to impact two-thirds of Australians. Two-thirds of Australians are not getting their full pay. And in the 2021-22 year, Fair Work Australia recovered $530 billion off Australian workers who had not been paid properly.
So I understand the tax office has a telephone number where people can ring and say, hang on, that person's just working in cash. Why wouldn't Fair Work Australia just have the same system and have their own inspectors? Why do we need unions to be given legal powers to enter sites where there may be no workers that are members of unions?
Well, where a person wants to join a union, they should have the freedom to do that. And where a person wants the union to represent them, to provide support for them, it is incredibly difficult now in Australia for the union to do that. And we know that in some sectors, like, for example, very low-paid sectors such as cleaning, it is incredibly difficult. And sadly, it's not universally prevalent, but it is very wide practicing problem in sectors like cleaning, we know, where wage theft is occurring. So there is a role for regulators, the Fair Work Ombudsman, the tax office, but there's also a role for unions, especially where someone is a member of your union and they want help from their union.
All right, well, here's what the Industrial Relations Minister had to say about this today.
The worker is, I gave those three examples, all dealing with the word low. Low bargaining power, low control, low pay. If you look at those features, that tells you who's going to be employee-like. And once you look at it that way, businesses like Mabel come in, businesses like Airtasker fall out.
For his part, Peter Dutton is understandably just a little suspicious about whether this is about wage theft or just a way to get unions into more workplaces.
Why is the government motivated to do this when every business group, every organisation is against it? It's because it's on the union wish list. We want to see the sovereign risk issues addressed that the government's created for the first time in many decades.
James, no one's going to pretend that wage theft hasn't been a problem. Remember, the systemic underpaying of workers has happened at places like the ABC, so you're assuming that their union is going to be wanting to open up the books. But it's another thing when we're talking about a small business that doesn't have a unionised workforce. Is this just a way to get the union officials into the organisations to start a relationship with workers so potentially it does unionise against the boss?
Paul, less than 1 in 10 Australian workers are a member of a union, and this is part of clearly a secret deal that's been done between the union movement and the Labor Party following and before the last election, where the union movement bankrolled the Labor Party to say, this is our wish list, we want to have access to every business in Australia. Most bosses, most employers do the right thing by their employees and have a good relationship. And this is all about empowering unions, allowing unions access to workplaces, to businesses where there aren't union members because they are not needed, because there is a good relationship. This plan will allow union officials access to the personal information of workers. And guess what? Where's that going to end up? It's going to end up with the union chasing these people up and trying to get them to join. This is all about empowering unions. It's actually not about wage theft.